Welcome to our gaming glossary. Today, we are diving into a really fascinating and honestly pretty controversial term, the whale. It's a huge deal in the modern gaming industry, and it all kicks off with one simple question. I mean, really think about it. How many of the biggest games on your phone or your computer cost you absolutely nothing to download and start playing? And yet, the companies behind them aren't just getting by, they are absolutely crushing it. So, how does that even work? Well, it works because the free-to-play market isn't some small little corner of the industry. No, it's a global juggernaut, pulling in over $100 billion a year. That wild number is no accident. It's the outcome of a very specific and, let's be honest, a very effective business model. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll tackle that free-to-play paradox and really define what a whale is. Then we'll get into the psychology of why people spend so much. After that, we'll look at the tools developers use to encourage spending, touch on the big ethical debate this has created, and finally, peek into what the future might look like for this whole model. So, about that paradox, how do free games make so much money? The answer? Well, it lies with a very particular kind of player. And that player is called a whale. Yep, just like the animal. The term's actually borrowed from the casino industry, and it's used for that tiny fraction of the player base that spends huge amounts of real money on in-game stuff, everything from cool-looking outfits to major competitive advantages. This quote just nails it. Think about how a Las Vegas casino rolls out the red carpet for its biggest spenders, the high rollers. It's the exact same idea in gaming. Developers will often design entire features, special events, and exclusive offers specifically to attract and, more importantly, keep these big spending players happy. This chart? Wow, this really shows you just how lopsided the whole thing is. Imagine you're in a stadium with 100 people. Just two of them, that little 2% slice you see there, are paying for literally everyone else's ticket, their popcorn, their drinks, the whole shebang. That is exactly how the free-to-play economy works. A teeny tiny group of players, the whales, are funding the game for the other 98% of us who might not spend a dime. You know, if you've ever taken a business class, this might sound familiar. It's basically the 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. But in gaming, forget 80-20. This is the 80-20 rule on steroids. We're talking more like a 90-10, or as you just saw, sometimes even a 98-2 rule. It's a super concentrated version of that classic economic idea. So this is the big question, isn't it? What on earth drives someone to spend hundreds, or in some cases, thousands and thousands of dollars on a free game? Well, the answer isn't simple. It's actually a pretty complex mix of human psychology. It's almost never just one thing. For some people, it's pure competition. They want to be the best, and they'll pay for the gear to get them to the top of the leaderboards. For others, it's all about status, flexing that super rare item that screams, I invested in this game. Then you have the completionists, the people who just have to collect one of everything. And of course, there's just plain old convenience, paying to skip a boring, time-consuming part of the game. Some players even see it as their way of tipping the developers for a game they really love. But see, it's not enough for developers to just know why players spend. They've built a whole sophisticated toolkit of game mechanics designed specifically to tap into these motivations and, well, get people to open their wallets. I bet you've run into all of these. You've got your random rewards, things like loot boxes or gacha pulls that give you that same rush as pulling a slot machine handle. Then there's created urgency, those limited time offers and sales that trigger a massive fear of missing out, or FOMO. VIP systems are a direct way to reward the big spenders with special perks, making their status obvious. And finally, selling convenience is for all those players who have more money than time. And don't get it twisted, this isn't just random guesswork. This is a full-blown data-driven science. Game companies are analyzing incredible amounts of player data to spot spending patterns, predict who's likely to become a whale, and sometimes even push customized offers to them in real time. So all of this, it naturally leads us to a pretty thorny and, frankly, uncomfortable conversation. At what point does a smart business model cross the line and become a form of exploitation? Okay, so there are two main camps here. On one side, you have the critics. They argue that a lot of these tactics are predatory, that they're designed to hook people who might have addictive personalities or poor impulse control. They'll also say it creates unfair pay-to-win games and that loot boxes are basically just gambling for kids.
But then, on the other side, you have the business case. Developers and defenders of the model will tell you that spending is always a choice. They'll argue that these whales are absolutely essential because they're funding the game for the millions of people who play for free, and that this is just what it takes for a free-to-play game to even exist.
So, where do we go from here? What does the future actually hold for the whale? I mean, this model has completely dominated gaming for over a decade, but now it's facing some serious heat from just about everyone.
So, here's the bottom line. The one thing you really need to take away from all this. For better or for worse, whales are the economic engine that powers the entire modern free-to-play industry. Without this tiny percentage of high spenders, the whole ecosystem as we know it, with its billions in revenue and millions of free players, it just wouldn't work.
And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. As governments start to step in and regulate things like loot boxes, and as players get savvier about these mechanics, will the industry be forced to come up with a totally new, maybe more ethical model? Or will they just use even more sophisticated data and psychology to get even better at hunting whales? It's definitely something to think about the next time you fire up a free game.